Ashoka Maurya, commonly known as Ashoka and also as Ashoka the Great, was an Indian emperor of the Maurya Dynasty who ruled almost all of the Indian subcontinent from circa 269 BCE to 232 BCE. One of India's greatest emperors, Ashoka reigned over a realm that stretched from the Hindu Kush mountains in the west to Bengal in the east and covered the entire Indian subcontinent except parts of present-day Tamil Nadu and Kerala. The empire's capital was Pataliputra, with provincial capitals at Taxila and Ujjain. In about 260 BCE, Ashoka waged a bitterly destructive war against the state of Kalinga. He conquered Kalinga, which none of his ancestors had done. He embraced Buddhism after witnessing the mass deaths of the Kalinga War, which he himself had waged out of a desire for conquest. Ashoka reflected on the war in Kalinga, which reportedly had resulted in more than 100,000 deaths and 150,000 deportations. Ashoka converted gradually to Buddhism beginning about 263 BCE at the latest. He was later dedicated to the propagation of Buddhism across Asia, and established monuments marking several significant sites in the life of Gautama Buddha. Ashoka regarded Buddhism as a doctrine that could serve as a cultural foundation for political unity. Ashoka is now remembered as a philanthropic administrator. In the Kalinga Edicts, he addresses his people as his children, and mentions that as a father he desires their good. Ashoka is referred to as Samrat Chakravartin Ashoka, the Emperor of Emperors Ashoka. His name Ashoka means painless, without sorrow in Sanskrit. In his edicts, he is referred to as Devanam Priya, and Pradarin. His fondness for his name's connection to the Ashoka tree, or the Ashoka tree, is also referenced in the Ashokavadana. H. G. Wells wrote of Ashoka in his book The Outline of History, amidst the tens of thousands of names of monarchs that crowd the columns of history, their majesties and graciousnesses and serenities and royal highnesses and the like, the name of Ashoka shines, and shines, almost alone, a star. Along with the edicts of Ashoka, his legend is related in the 2nd century Ashokavadana, and in the Sri Lankan text Mahavamsa. The emblem of the modern Republic of India is an adaptation of the lion capital of Ashoka. Biography: Ashoka's early life. Ashoka was born to the Mauryan Emperor Binsra and a relatively lower-ranked wife of his, Dharma, or Dhamma. He was the grandson of Chandragupta Maurya, founder of Mauryan dynasty. The Avadana texts mention that his mother was Queen Subhadranga. According to Ashokavadana, she was the daughter of a Brahmin from the city of Champa. Empress Subhadranga was a Brahmin of the Ajivika sect, and was found to be a suitable match for Emperor Binsra. Though a palace intrigue kept her away from the emperor, this eventually ended, and she bore a son. It is from her exclamation "I am now without sorrow," that Ashoka got his name. The Divivadana tells a similar story, but gives the name of the queen as Janapada Kalayana. Ashoka had several elder siblings, all of whom were his half-brothers from other wives of Binsra. His fighting qualities were apparent from an early age and he was given royal military training. He was known as a fearsome hunter, and according to a legend, killed a lion with just a wooden rod. Because of his reputation as a frightening warrior and a heartless general, he was sent to curb the riots in the Avanti province of the Mauryan Empire. Rise to power. The Buddhist text Divivadana describes Ashoka putting down a revolt due to activities of wicked ministers. This may have been an incident in Binsra's times. Dharanatha's account states that Chanakya, one of Binsra's great lords, destroyed the nobles and kings of 16 towns and made himself the master of all territory between the eastern and the western seas. Some historians consider this as an indication of Binsra's conquest of the Deccan while others consider it as suppression of a revolt. Following this, Ashoka was stationed at Ujjain as governor. Binsra's death in 273 BCE led to a war over succession. According to Divivadana, Binsra wanted his son Sushim to succeed him, but Ashoka was supported by his father's ministers, who found Sushim to be arrogant and disrespectful towards them. A minister named Radhagupta seems to have played an important role in Ashoka's rise to the throne. The Ashokavadana recounts Radhagupta's offering of an old royal elephant to Ashoka for him to ride to the Garden of the Gold Pavilion where King Binsra would determine his successor. Ashoka later got rid of the legitimate heir to the throne by tricking him into entering a pit filled with live coals. Radhagupta, according to the Ashokavadana, would later be appointed prime minister by Ashoka once he had gained the throne. The Depavansa and Mahavansa refer to Ashoka's killing 99 of his brothers, sparing only one, named Vitashoka or Tissa, although there is no clear proof about this incident. The coronation happened in 269 BCE, 4 years after his succession to the throne. Early life as emperor. Buddhist legends state that Ashoka was of a wicked nature and bad temper. He also built Ashoka's Hell, an elaborate torture chamber, deemed the paradisal hell, because of its beautiful exterior contrasted with the acts carried out inside by his appointed executioner Jayaraka, which earned him the name of Asekshana Ashoka, or Chandashoka, meaning Ashoka the Fierce in Sanskrit. Professor Charles Dreckmeyer cautions that the Buddhist legends intend to dramatize the change that Buddhism wrought in him, and therefore, exaggerate Ashoka's past wickedness and his piousness after the conversion. Ascending the throne, Ashoka expanded his empire over the next 8 years, from the present-day boundaries Assam in the east to Iran in the west. From the Fabia Knot in the north to the peninsula of southern India except for present-day Tamil Nadu and Kerala which were ruled by the 3 ancient Tamil kingdoms. Conquest of Kalinga. While the early part of Ashoka's reign was apparently quite bloodthirsty, he became a follower of the Buddhist teachings after his conquest of Kalinga on the east coast of India in the present-day states of Odisha and north coastal Andhra Pradesh. Kalinga was a state that prided itself on its sovereignty and democracy. With its monarchical parliamentary democracy it was quite an exception in ancient Bharata where there existed the concept of Rajdharma. Rajdharma means the duty of the rulers, which was intrinsically entwined with the concept of bravery and dharma. The Kalinga War happened 8 years after his coronation. From his 13th inscription, we come to know that the battle was a massive one and caused the deaths of more than 100,000 soldiers and many civilians who rose up in defense. Over 150,000 were deported. When he was walking through the grounds of Kalinga after his conquest, rejoicing in his victory, he was moved by the number of bodies strewn there and the wails of the kith and kin of the dead. Buddhist conversion. Edict 13 on the Edicts of Ashoka rock inscriptions reflect the great remorse the king felt after observing the destruction of Kalinga. His Majesty feels remorse on account of the conquest of Kalinga because, during the subjugation of a previously unconquered country, slaughter, death, and taking away captive of the people necessarily occur, whereat His Majesty feels profound sorrow and regret. The edict goes on to address the even greater degree of sorrow and regret resulting from Ashoka's understanding that the friends and families of deceased would suffer greatly too. Legend says that one day after the war was over, Ashoka ventured out to roam the city and all he could see were burnt houses and scattered corpses. This sight made him sick and he cried the famous monologue. "What have I done? If this is a victory, what's a defeat then? Is this a victory or a defeat? Is this justice or injustice? Is it gallantry or a rout? Is it valor to kill innocent children and women? Did I do it to widen the empire and for prosperity or to destroy the other's kingdom and splendor? One has lost her husband, someone else a father, someone a child, someone an unborn infant. What's this debris of the corpses? Are these marks of victory or defeat? Are these vultures, crows, eagles the messengers of death or evil?" The lethal war with Kalinga transformed the vengeful Emperor Ashoka to a stable and peaceful emperor and he embraced Buddhism. This led to the expansion of Buddhism in the Mauryan Empire and other kingdoms during his rule, and worldwide from about 250 BCE. Prominent in this cause were his son Mahinda and daughter Sanghamitra, who established Buddhism in Ceylon. Death and legacy. Ashoka ruled for an estimated 40 years. Legend states that during his cremation, his body burned for 7 days and nights. After his death, the Mauryan dynasty lasted just 15 more years until his empire stretched over almost all of the Indian subcontinent. Ashoka had many wives and children, but many of their names are lost to time. His supreme consort and first wife was Vidisha Mahadevi Ashoka Maurya Sanghamitra. Mahindra and Sanghamitra were twins born by her, in the city of Ujjain. he had entrusted to them the job of making Buddhism more popular across the known and the unknown world. Mahendra and Sanghamitra went into Sri Lanka and converted the king, the queen and their people to Buddhism. In his old age, he seems to have come under the spell of his youngest wife Tishnaksha. It is said that she had got Ashoka's son Karnala, the regent in Taxila and the heir presumptive to the throne, blinded by a wily stratagem. The official executioners spared Karnala and he became a wandering singer accompanied by his favourite wife Kanchanmala. In Pataliputra, Ashoka heard Karnala's song, and realized that Karnala's misfortune may have been a punishment for some past sin of the emperor himself. He condemned Tishnaksha to death, restoring Karnala to the court. In the Ashoka Karnala is portrayed as forgiving Tishnaksha, having obtained enlightenment through Buddhist practice. While he urges Ashoka to forgive her as well, Ashoka does not respond with the same forgiveness. Karnala was succeeded by his son, Samprati, but his rule did not last long after Ashoka's death. The reign of Ashoka Maurya might have disappeared into history as the ages passed by, had he not left behind records of his reign. These records are in the form of sculpted pillars and rocks inscribed with a variety of actions and teachings he wished to be published under his name. The language used for inscription was Prakrit. In the year 185 BCE, about 50 years after Ashoka's death, the last Maurya ruler, Bhadradha, was assassinated by the commander-in-chief of the Mauryan armed forces, Pusyamitra Sangha, while he was taking the guard of honor of his forces. Pusyamitra Sangha founded the Sangha dynasty and ruled just a fragmented part of the Mauryan Empire. Many of the northwestern territories of the Mauryan Empire became the Indo-Greek kingdom. In 2001, a semi-fictionalized portrayal of Ashoka's life was produced as a motion picture under the title Ashoka. King Ashoka, the third monarch of the Indian Mauryan dynasty, has come to be regarded as one of the most exemplary rulers in world history. Buddhist kingship. One of the more enduring legacies of Ashoka Maurya was the model that he provided for the relationship between Buddhism and the state. Throughout Theravada southeastern Asia, the model of rulership embodied by Ashoka replaced the notion of divine kingship that had previously dominated. Under this model of Buddhist kingship, the king sought to legitimize his rule not through descent from a divine source, but by supporting and earning the approval of the Buddhist Sangha. Following Ashoka's example, kings established monasteries, funded the construction of stupas, and supported the ordination of monks in their kingdom. Many rulers also took an active role in resolving disputes over the status and regulation of the Sangha, as Ashoka had in calling a conclave to settle a number of contentious issues during his reign. This development ultimately led to a close association in many Southeast Asian countries between the monarchy and the religious hierarchy, an association that can still be seen today in the state-supported Buddhism of Thailand and the traditional role of the Thai king as both a religious and secular leader. Ashoka also said that all his courtiers always governed the people in a moral manner. According to the legends mentioned in the 2nd century CE text Ashokavadana, Ashoka was not non-violent after adopting Buddhism. In one instance, a non-Buddhist in Pandravardhana drew a picture showing the Buddha bowing at the feet of Nirgrantha Jataputra. On complaint from a Buddhist devotee, Ashoka issued an order to arrest him, and subsequently, another order to kill all the Ajivikas in Pandravardhana. Around 18,000 followers of the Ajivika sect were executed as a result of this order. Sometime later, another Nirgrantha follower in Pataliputra drew a similar picture. Ashoka burnt him and his entire family alive in their house. He also announced an award of 1 dinara to anyone who brought him the head of a Nirgrantha heretic. According to Ashokavadana, as a result of this order, his own brother was mistaken for a heretic and killed by a cowherd. These stories of persecutions of rival sects by Ashoka appear to be a clear fabrication arising out of sectarian propaganda. Historical sources. Ashoka was almost forgotten by the historians of the early British India, but James Princip contributed in the revelation of historical sources. Another important historian was British archaeologist John Hubert Marshall, who was Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India. His main interests were Sankai and Sarnath, in addition to Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Sir Alexander Cunningham, a British archaeologist and army engineer, and often known as the father of the Archaeological Survey of India, unveiled heritage sites like the Bharat Stupa, Sarnath, Sankai, and the Mayabodi Temple. Mortimer Wheeler, a British archaeologist, also exposed Ashokan historical sources, especially the Taxila. Information about the life and reign of Ashoka primarily comes from a relatively small number of Buddhist sources. In particular, the Sanskrit Ashokavadana, written in the 2nd century, and the 2 Pali chronicles of Sri Lanka provide most of the currently known information about Ashoka. Additional information is contributed by the Edicts of Ashoka, whose authorship was finally attributed to the Ashoka of Buddhist legend after the discovery of dynastic lists that gave the name used in the edicts as a title or additional name of Ashoka Maurya. Architectural remains of his period have been found at Kumara, Patna, which include an 80-pillar hypostyle hall. Edicts of Ashoka. The Edicts of Ashoka are a collection of 33 inscriptions on the pillars of Ashoka, as well as boulders and cave walls, made by Ashoka during his reign. These inscriptions are dispersed throughout modern-day Pakistan and India, and represent the first tangible evidence of Buddhism. The edicts describe in detail the first wide expansion of Buddhism through the sponsorship of one of the most powerful kings of Indian history, offering more information about Ashoka's proselytism, moral precepts, religious precepts, and his notions of social and animal welfare. Ashokavadana. The Ashokavadana is a 2nd century CE text related to the legend of Ashoka. The legend was translated into Chinese by Fa Hen in 300 CE. It is essentially a Hinayana text, and its world is that of Mathura and northwest India. The emphasis of this little-known text is on exploring the relationship between the king and the community of monks and setting up an ideal of religious life for the laity by telling appealing stories about religious exploits. The most startling feature is that Ashoka unregistered trademark S conversion has nothing to do with the Kalinga War, which is not even mentioned, nor is there a word about his belonging to the Maurya Dynasty. Equally surprising is the record of his use of state power to spread Buddhism in an uncompromising fashion. The legend of Viet Ashoka provides insights into Ashoka unregistered trademark S character that are not available in the widely known Pali records. Mahavamsa. The Mahavamsa is a historical poem written in the Pali language of the kings of Sri Lanka. It covers the period from the coming of King Vijayana of Kalinga in 543 BCE to the reign of King Mahesana. As it often refers to the royal dynasties of India, the Mahavamsa is also valuable for historians who wish to date and relate contemporary royal dynasties in the Indian subcontinent. It is very important in dating the consecration of Ashoka. Dipavamsa. The Dipavamsa, or Dipavamsa, is the oldest historical record of Sri Lanka. The chronicle is believed to be compiled from the Katha and other sources around the 3rd or 4th century. King Titusana had ordered that the Dipavamsa be recited at the Mahinda festival held annually in Anuradhapura. Perceptions. The use of Buddhist sources in reconstructing the life of Ashoka has had a strong influence on perceptions of Ashoka, as well as the interpretations of his edicts. Building on traditional accounts, early scholars regarded Ashoka as a primarily Buddhist monarch who underwent a conversion to Buddhism and was actively engaged in sponsoring and supporting the Buddhist monastic institution. Some scholars have tended to question this assessment. The only source of information not attributable to Buddhist sources are the Ashokan edicts, and these do not explicitly state that Ashoka was a Buddhist. In his edicts, Ashoka expresses support for all the major religions of his time, Buddhism, Brahmanism, Jainism, and Ajivikaism, and his edicts addressed to the population at large generally focus on moral themes members of all the religions would accept. However, there is strong evidence in the edicts alone that he was a Buddhist. In one edict he belittles rituals, and he banned Vedic animal sacrifices. These strongly suggest that he at least did not look to the Vedic tradition for guidance. Furthermore, there are many edicts expressed to Buddhists alone. In one, Ashoka declares himself to be an Upasaka, and in another he demonstrates a close familiarity with Buddhist texts. He erected rock pillars at Buddhist holy sites, but did not do so for the sites of other religions. He also used the word Dhamma to refer to qualities of the heart that underlie moral action. This was an exclusively Buddhist use of the word. Finally, the ideals he promotes correspond to the first three steps of the Buddha's graduated discourse. Interestingly, the Ashoka presents an alternate view of the familiar Ashoka. One in which his conversion does not have anything to do with the Kalinga War or about his descent from the Maurya Dynasty. Instead, Ashoka's reason for adopting non-violence appears much more personal. The Ashoka shows that the main source of Ashoka's conversion and the acts of welfare that followed are rooted instead in intense personal anguish at its core, from a wellspring inside himself. It thereby illuminates Ashoka as more humanly ambitious and passionate, with both greatness and flaws. This Ashoka is very different from the shadowy do-gooder of later Pali chronicles. Much of the knowledge about Ashoka comes from the several inscriptions that he had carved on pillars and rocks throughout the empire. All his inscriptions present him as compassionate, loving. In the Kalinga rock edicts, he addresses his people as his children, and mentions that as a father he desires their good. These inscriptions promoted Buddhist morality and encouraged non-violence and adherence to Dharma, and they talk of his fame in conquered lands as well as the neighboring kingdoms holding up his might. One also gets some primary information about the Kalinga War and Ashoka's allies plus some useful knowledge on the civil administration. The Ashoka pillar at Sarnath is the most notable of the relics left by Ashoka. Made of sandstone, this pillar records the visit of the emperor to Sarnath, in the 3rd century BCE. It has a four-lion capital which was adopted as the emblem of the modern Indian Republic. The lion symbolizes both Ashoka's imperial rule and the kingship of the Buddha. In translating these monuments, historians learn the bulk of what is assumed to have been true fact of the Mauryan Empire. It is difficult to determine whether or not some actual events ever happened, but the stone etchings clearly depict how Ashoka wanted to be thought of and remembered. Foci of debate. Recently scholarly analysis determined that the three major foci of debate regarding Ashoka involve the nature of the Maurya Empire, the extent and impact of Ashoka's pacifism, and what is referred to in the inscriptions as Dhamma or Dharma, which connotes goodness, virtue, and charity. Some historians have argued that Ashoka's pacifism undermined the military backbone of the Maurya Empire, while others have suggested that the extent and impact of his pacifism have been grossly exaggerated. The Dhamma of the Edicts has been understood as concurrently a Buddhist lay ethic, a set of politico-moral ideas, a sort of universal religion, or as an Ashokan innovation. On the other hand, it has also been interpreted as an essentially political ideology that sought to knit together a vast and diverse empire. Scholars are still attempting to analyze both the expressed and implied political ideas of the edicts, and make inferences pertaining to how that vision was grappling with problems and political realities of a virtually subcontinental, and culturally and economically highly variegated, 3rd century BCE Indian Empire. Nonetheless, it remains clear that Ashoka's inscriptions represent the earliest corpus of royal inscriptions in the Indian subcontinent, and therefore proved to be a very important innovation in royal practices. Contributions. Approach towards religions. According to Indian historian Ramala Thapar, Ashoka emphasized respect for all religious teachers, harmonious relationship between parents and children, teachers and pupils, and employers and employees. Ashoka's religion contained gleanings from all religions, and he made a law that prohibited anyone from any act or word against any religion. He emphasized on the virtues of ahimsa, respect to all religious teachers, equal respect for and study of each other's scriptures, and on rational faith. Global spread of Buddhism. As a Buddhist emperor, Ashoka believed that Buddhism is beneficial for all human beings as well as animals and plants, so he built a number of stupas, sangarama, viharas, chaitya, and residences for Buddhist monks all over South Asia and Central Asia. According to the Ashoka, he ordered the construction of 84,000 stupas to house the Buddha's relics. In the Arimanja Shrimulakalpa, Ashoka takes offerings to each of these stupas traveling in a chariot adorned with precious metals. He gave donations to viharas and mathas. He sent his only daughter Sanghamitra and son Mahindra to spread Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Ashoka also sent many prominent Buddhist monks Sthaviras like Madhyamik Sthavira to modern Kashmir and Afghanistan. Murarishkshit Sthavira to Syria, Persia/Iran, Egypt, Greece, Italy and Turkey. Masim Sthavira to Nepal, Bhutan, China and Mongolia. Son Utar Sthavira to modern Cambodia, Laos, Burma, Thailand and Vietnam. Mahadhe Marakhita Sthavira to Maharashtra. Maharakhit Sthavira and Yadvan to Marakhita Sthavira to South India. Ashoka also invited Buddhists and non-Buddhists for religious conferences. He inspired the Buddhist monks to compose the sacred religious texts, and also gave all types of help to that end. Ashoka also helped to develop viharas such as Nalanda and Taxila. Ashoka helped to construct Sankai and Mayabodhi temple. Ashoka also gave donations to non-Buddhists. As his reign continued, his even-handedness was replaced with special inclination towards Buddhism. Ashoka helped and respected both Sramans and Brahmins. Ashoka also helped to organize the Third Buddhist Council at Pataliputra. It was conducted by the monk Moggalaputta who was the spiritual teacher of the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka. It is well known that Ashoka sent Darwan courtiers or emissaries to convey messages or letters, written or oral, to various people. The Fifth Rock Edict about oral orders reveals this. It was later confirmed that it was not unusual to add oral messages to written ones, and the content of Ashoka's messages can be inferred likewise from the Fifth Rock Edict. They were meant to spread his Dhamma-vijaya, which he considered the highest victory and which he wished to propagate everywhere. There is obvious and undeniable trace of cultural contact through the adoption of the Kharosthi script, and the idea of installing inscriptions might have traveled with this script, as Achaemenid influences seem in some of the formulations used by Ashoka in his inscriptions. This indicates to us that Ashoka was indeed in contact with other cultures, and was an active part in mingling and spreading new cultural ideas beyond his own immediate walls. In his edicts, Ashoka mentions some of the people living in Hellenic countries as converts to Buddhism, although no Hellenic historical record of this event remain. Now it is conquest by Dhamma that beloved of the gods considers to be the best conquest. And it had been won here, on the borders, even 600 yojanas away, where the Greek king Antiochus rules. Beyond there were the four kings named Ptolemy, Antigonos, Magas and Alexander rule, likewise in the south among the Kolas, the Pandyas, and as far as Tamrapani. Here in the king's domain among the Greeks, the Kambojas, the Napakas, the Narpipamktis, the Bojas, the Paitanikas, the Andhras and the Paladas, everywhere people are following beloved of the gods' instructions in Dhamma. Even where beloved of the gods' envoys have not been, these people too, having heard of the practice of Dhamma and the ordinances and instructions in Dhamma given by beloved of the gods, are following it and will continue to do so. It is not too far-fetched to imagine, however, that Ashoka received letters from Greek rulers and was acquainted with the Hellenistic royal orders in the same way as he perhaps knew of the inscriptions of the Achaemenid kings, given the presence of ambassadors of Hellenistic kings in India. The Greeks in India even seem to have played an active role in the propagation of Buddhism, as some of the emissaries of Ashoka, such as Dharmarikshita, are described in Pali sources as leading Greek Buddhist monks, active in spreading Buddhism. As administrator, Ashoka's military power was strong, but after his conversion to Buddhism, he maintained friendly relations with three major Tamil kingdoms in the south, namely Cheras, Kolas and Pandyas, the post-Alexandrian Empire, Tamrapani, and Syavanabhumi. His edicts state that he made provisions for medical treatment of humans and animals in his own kingdom as well as in these neighboring states. He also had wells dug and trees planted along the roads for the benefit of the common people. Ashoka banned the slaughter and eating of the common cattle, and also imposed restrictions on fishing and fish-eating. He also abolished the royal hunting of animals and restricted the slaying of animals for food in the royal residence. Because he banned hunting, created many veterinary clinics and eliminated meat-eating on many holidays, the Mauryan Empire under Ashoka has been described as one of the very few instances in world history of a government treating its animals as citizens who are as deserving of its protection as the human residents. Ashoka Chakra. The Ashoka Chakra is a depiction of the Dharma Chakra or Dhammakakra in Pali, the wheel of Dharma. The wheel has 24 spokes which represent the 12 laws of dependent origination and the 12 laws of dependent termination. The Ashoka Chakra has been widely inscribed on many relics of the Mauryan emperor, most prominent among which is the lion capital of Sarnath and the Ashoka pillar. The most visible use of the Ashoka Chakra today is at the center of the national flag of the Republic of India, where it is rendered in a navy blue color on a white background, by replacing the symbol of chakra of the pre-independence versions of the flag. The Ashoka Chakra can also be seen on the base of lion capital of Ashoka, which has been adopted as the national emblem of India. The Ashoka Chakra was built by Ashoka during his reign. Chakra is a Sanskrit word which also means cycle, or self-repeating process. The process it signifies is the cycle of time, as in how the world changes with time. A few days before India became independent on August 1947, the specially formed Constituent Assembly decided that the flag of India must be acceptable to all parties and communities. A flag with 3 colors, saffron, white and green with the Ashoka Chakra was selected. Pillars of Ashoka. The Pillars of Ashoka are a series of columns dispersed throughout the northern Indian subcontinent, and erected by Ashoka during his reign in the 3rd century BCE. Originally, there must have been many Pillars of Ashoka, although only 10 with inscriptions still survive. Averaging between 40 and 50 feet in height, and weighing up to 50 tons each, all the pillars were quarried at Shuna, just south of Varanasi, and dragged, sometimes hundreds of miles, to where they were erected. The first pillar of Ashoka was found in the 16th century by Thomas Karayat in the ruins of ancient Delhi. The wheel represents the sun time and Buddhist law, while the swastika stands for the cosmic dance around a fixed center and guards against evil. There is no evidence of a swastika, or manji, on the pillars. Lion capital of Ashoka. The lion capital of Ashoka is a sculpture of 4 Indian lions standing back to back. It was originally placed atop the Ashoka pillar at Sarnath, now in the state of Uttar Pradesh, India. The pillar, sometimes called the Ashoka column, is still in its original location, but the lion capital is now in the Sarnath Museum. This lion capital of Ashoka from Sarnath has been adopted as the national emblem of India, and the wheel Ashoka Chakra from its base was placed onto the center of the national flag of India. The capital contains 4 lions, standing back to back, mounted on an abacus, with a frieze carrying sculptures in high relief of an elephant, a galloping horse, a bull, and a lion, separated by intervening spoke chariot wheels over a bell-shaped lotus. Carved out of a single block of polished sandstone, the capital was believed to be crowned by a wheel of Dharma. The Ashoka lion capital, or the Sarnath lion capital, is also known as the national symbol of India. The Sarnath pillar bears one of the Edicts of Ashoka, an inscription against division within the Buddhist community, which reads, "No one shall cause division in the order of monks." The Sarnath pillar is a column surmounted by a capital, which consists of a canopy representing an inverted bell-shaped lotus flower, a short cylindrical abacus with 4 24-spoke Dharma wheels with 4 animals. The 4 animals in the Sarnath capital are believed to symbolize different steps of Lord Buddha's life. The elephant represents the Buddha's idea in reference to the dream of Queen Maya of a white elephant entering her womb. The bull represents desire during the life of the Buddha as a prince. The horse represents Buddha's departure from palatial life. The lion represents the accomplishment of Buddha. Besides the religious interpretations, there are some non-religious interpretations also about the symbolism of the Ashoka capital pillar at Sarnath. According to them, the 4 lions symbolize Ashoka's rule over the 4 directions, the wheels as symbols of his enlightened rule, and the 4 animals as symbols of 4 adjoining territories of India. Constructions credited to Ashoka. The British restoration was done by under guidance from Benwiligama Sri Sumangala, Sankai, Madhya Pradesh, India, Dame Stupa, Sarnath, Uttar Pradesh, India, Mayabodi Temple, Bihar, India, Barabar Caves, Bihar, India, Nalanda University Bihar, India, Taxila University Taxila, Pakistan, Burman Taxila, Pakistan, Bharat Stupa, Madhya Pradesh, India, Diorkulthar Stupa, Madhya Pradesh, India, Bhatkara Stupa, Swat, Pakistan, Samnati Stupa, Karnataka, India. The only known sculptural depiction of Ashoka, Meerukund Stupa Nawabshah, Pakistan. In art, film and literature, Jashankar Prasad composed Ashoka Ki Chinta, a poem that portrays Ashoka unregistered trademark-s feelings during the War of Kalinga. Uttar Prayadarshi, a verse play written by poet Ujjain, depicting his redemption, was adapted to stage in 1996 by theatre director Ratan Thayyam and has since been performed in many parts of the world. In Piers Anthony unregistered trademark-s series of space opera novels, the main character mentions Ashoka as a model for administrators to strive for. Ashoka is a 2001 epic Indian historical drama film directed and co-written by Santosh Sivan. The film stars Shah Rukh Khan as Ashoka. The Legend of Kunal is an upcoming film based on the life of Kunal, the son of the Indian Emperor Ashoka. The movie will be directed by Chandra Prakash Dwivedi. In 1973, Amar Chitrakatha released a graphic novel based on the life of Ashoka. In 2002, Mason Jennings released the song Emperor Ashoka on his Living in the Moment EP. It is based on the life of Ashoka. See also, Arthashastra, Ashoka's Major Rock Edict, Ashokavadana, Edicts of Ashoka, Kalinga War, Lion Capital of Ashoka, Magadha, Maurya Empire, Sisupalga, Buddhism, Ashoka's Policy of Dhamma, References. Bibliography. External links, Ashoka at DMOZ, media related to Ashoka at Wikimedia Commons, quotations related to Ashoka at Wikiquote.